Have you ever wondered how we get brand new medicines? Or how engineers come up with these incredible new materials? Without just mixing things together in a lab and hoping for the best. Well, the secret? It's in a virtual world. A place where scientists can literally see and move the building blocks of matter itself. This is molecular modeling. And it's where we're building the future, one single atom at a time. Okay, but before we dive into that virtual lab, we've got to take a step back. Back to the real world. Because to really get why these simulations are such a game changer, you first have to appreciate that chemistry is, well, it's the invisible engine that drives literally everything.
I mean, just look around you right now. Seriously. Everything you see, everything you can touch, even what you're feeling, it's all chemistry. It's this silent, invisible force powering our entire reality. And it's all happening on a scale that's, well, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
And hey, it's not just the world around you, it's the world inside you. Right now, as you're listening to me talk, there's a whole cascade of chemical reactions firing off in your brain just to process these words. It's wild. From the food we eat to the thoughts we think, we are basically just walking, talking chemistry sets. So, okay, if chemistry is this super important engine running everything, that brings up a really big problem, right? How on earth do you study an engine that you can't even see? And that's the heart of the challenge. This incredible, intricate dance between atoms and molecules, it's happening on a stage that's just too small for us to watch. We can see the final bow, the result, but we can't see the dance itself. So that leads us to the big question, the one that's kept scientists up at night for centuries. How do we not just understand, but actually predict what these tiny, invisible particles are going to do next? I mean, how are we supposed to build a better future if we're essentially working blind? Well, the answer is you treat it like a code, a hidden language. The universe, it turns out, operates on a very specific set of rules. And if we can figure out those rules, if we can crack that code, then we can start to predict what's going to happen. We can finally read chemistry's hidden language. But cracking a code this complex, well, that's not a one-person job. It takes a team, a partnership, really. You need the architects who can figure out the rules of the universe, and you need the builders who can use those rules to create something new. And that exact partnership is what makes modern chemistry, well, possible. It's this amazing collaboration between two fields, theoretical chemistry and computational chemistry. And when they work together, they create this incredible cycle of discovery that's moving science forward faster than ever before. You can kind of think of them as two sides of the same coin. Theoretical chemistry, that's the side that's always asking, why? Why do things work this way? And then you've got computational chemistry, which asks, okay, so how does it work? And what happens if we try this? So let's dig into that a little. Theoretical chemistry, these are the architects. They're the ones who draw up the fundamental blueprints of the universe. They work with things like quantum mechanics, the super weird but totally true rules that govern how atoms and all that tiny stuff works. They create the deep, complex mathematical equations that explain the fundamental why. And then you've got the builder, computational chemistry. This field takes those amazing, elegant blueprints from the architects and says, okay, let's build it. They use massive computers to apply those rules to real-world problems, constructing these incredibly detailed virtual models to see what happens. So here's the bottom line. The theorist gives us the why. The computational chemist takes that why and uses it to figure out what happens if. They are completely dependent on each other. You really can't have one without the other if you want to make any real progress. All right, so when we talk about a virtual chemistry lab, what does that actually mean? Are we talking about something that's anything like a real lab with beakers and chemicals? You know what? In a lot of ways, yeah, it is. And this is a really cool and powerful idea. See, doing chemistry on a computer isn't just about writing code and hitting run. The whole process, it follows the exact same scientific method that scientists have been using in labs for hundreds of years. It's really the same quest for knowledge, just in a virtual space. In fact, when you put the two processes side by side, it's pretty amazing. You realize that whether you're in a physical lab surrounded by glassware or sitting in front of a supercomputer, the fundamental path to discovery is basically identical. I mean, think about it. Both start with a question, right? What if I do this? Then, the experimental chemist preps their gear and gets the lab ready. The computational chemist preps their virtual model and gets the simulation ready. One runs the experiment, the other runs the calculation. And at the end of the day,
they both end up with a pile of data that needs to be analyzed to find the answer. It's just two different roads leading to the same destination.
And this really brings us to the most important point of this whole thing. This isn't about computers versus labs. It's not a competition. It's about how they work together to become something way more powerful than either one could ever be on its own.
So no, molecular modeling isn't here to replace the traditional lab. It's here to be its partner. Think of it like a super intelligent guide that helps make the actual lab work smarter, faster, and way more efficient. It's the perfect bridge between the clean, abstract world of pure theory and the, let's face it, often messy world of real-life experiments. And this is how modern science gets done. You run a simulation, and it gives you clues about what to try in the real lab. Then, you take what you learned in the lab, and you use it to make your next simulation even better. It's this beautiful feedback loop, a cycle of discovery, where each side makes the other stronger.
The advantages here are just massive. You can use a simulation to predict which of 1,000 possible experiments is actually worth trying, which saves an unbelievable amount of time and money. They can also help you figure out why a lab experiment gave you a weird result. And maybe the coolest part? You can simulate things that are literally impossible to do in a real lab, like what's happening inside a star, or a chemical reaction that's over in less than a trillionth of a second. And this is why all of this really matters. This partnership is how we design new medicines molecule by molecule. It's how we create the next generation of materials for our phones and our cars. It's how we're going to tackle some of the biggest challenges facing us, from new diseases to a changing climate. You know, by learning to read and then simulate the basic code of our universe, we've given ourselves an incredible power to actually shape it. And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. Now that we can build and test entire new realities, entire molecular worlds, right inside a computer, what's the next world we're gonna design?